Hi everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Ode to Joy, coming out in theaters, digital, on demand, August 9th. This man's in it. It's Jake Lacy.
Hey,
What's up, man?
Hey,
how are you?
Thanks for having me here.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, same.
So I checked this out last night into this morning. This was a fun movie.
Great.
Seems like you had a good time with it. And for a guy that was living in New York, just moved to LA,
Yeah.
you were right back in New York.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I was like, landed in LA. They were like, there's a movie, Jason Weiner's gonna make this movie. Do you want to go hang? I was like, yeah, sure. And then we met for a little bit, and it was like, it's gonna be back in Brooklyn. I was like, okay, cool.
You're like, I was just there.
Yeah,
wife,
perfect.
dog,
Good.
the whole
Still
thing.
jet lagged. Good, great. Let's
Cool.
go. Let's go back. Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. So this is a really interesting movie because we were talking off camera. Like the industry is changing, and here's a movie where it's emotional. It's something that people are dealing with every day, and it's also dealing with relationships, which people can connect to. So, what was the experience like for you?
I mean, it's wonderful. Like, I was a fan of Jason's and of Martin's, and so to get to like hang and work with them and create this thing together was really lovely. And I feel like there's, you know, that Martin's character lives with, I guess it's technically like narcolepsy with cataplexy.
The combo of the two.
Yeah, which means that like overstimulation of emotion can create like muscle weakness, and it looks like someone's passed out, but they're incapacitated, but still like visually or like sensorily present to what's happening. And that is sort of the jumping off point for this story, but it's treated respectfully and earnestly, you know, that like it's a strange set of circumstances, but I don't think the movie or the story treat it like the butt of the joke.
No.
You know, that it's just like his struggle to decide, do you pursue this life that is filled with like joy and laughter and emotion while it also may incapacitate you, or do you just shoot for like the absolute middle of the road so that you're never truly in danger, but you also live this sustainable and really boring life.
Yeah, like the blandest life possible.
Yeah, the most beige,
the most mundane.
Most
like I'm gonna go work
life.
at the library. That's it.
Yeah, like headphones on.
Yep.
Don't like see people loving each other. Don't hear jokes. Don't enjoy music. Like he walks around to like this funeral dirge, like playing all the time to just be like, things are terrible. Things are terrible. Right, like.
See people smiling, I'm gonna avoid that.
Not gonna, yeah, like people sharing an ice cream cone or like grandparents and grandkids, like no dice, not for me. Including like falling for Marina background and choosing not to pursue it because it's like too overwhelming.
It's too much,
and then we follow whether that plays out.
Definitely, and your character gets put in a really interesting situation because you're dealing.
Is knowing it,
You're dealing with a brother who has this, so you have that part of it, and then there's also the relationship aspect, which people will see. So, what was it like, kind of playing with that whole thing?
Well, you know, without giving like too much away, I end up dating the woman that Charlie Martin is infatuated with at his prodding, and Cooper's like pretty quickly out of his depth. Like,
to put it bluntly,
doesn't really like. A lot of it is like doesn't know. It appears like doesn't know how to be selfless. Doesn't know how to like show up for this person, but he's able to show up for his brother in a lot of ways. So I think it's more that like this wasn't the right person for him to show up for, you know? And I guess that thread, I guess a thread can't unravel, but I guess that thread gets pulled a little bit and you see like who is actually meant to be together.
Right. And that's interesting you say that because you can be emotionally there for one person, but you can't have the same emotional depth for another person. Like you don't necessarily think about it like that. It's like this person's blood, I'm gonna be there for them, and I'm trying to tap into it here, but I just can't get there.
Or that one is like, for whatever reason. I mean, in this story, it's like the difference between being like a security guard or like a guard dog for someone as like a responsibility and a chore, and the other like selflessly giving to a relationship and being like, I can show up for you. I can shift and meet your needs as they shift. Cooper can't like quite hang with that yet.
Yeah. And then for Marina's character, you think about her, it's like she falls for this one guy. She realizes she can't really be with him. Then I'm gonna put the brother in there. It's an interesting place for her to be. So what was it like observing her going through that?
I mean, I probably can't speak to like what her, you know, story or work is, other than like, I think the like Cooper, Francesca, Marina and I's relationship starts as like two people being like, this would be fun.
Yeah.
This would be easy.
Let's give
like,
it a shot.
Yeah. Like, we're not seeing anybody. It's chill, whatever, you know? And then like, as that starts to progress or become more serious, I think both start to realize like, we're not cut out to be serious with one another.
Right.
You know, that like, maybe there's a world where we're serious with someone else, but like, this is just, it was nice and fun and it's run its course, you know? Yeah.
So when you work with people like Marina, Martin, like for example, I went on a whole Homeland binge, so I saw Marina and that was like the first time experiencing that. Are you the type of person that will check out other things that your fellow actors have done, or are you just kind of going into it like, hey, let's just hang out and do this thing for the first time?
No, I don't. I mean, if I've seen what they've done.
Sure, it's an added bonus.
I'm certainly like, wow, this is the person from so-and-so, you know, or like, I'm a fan of this thing that they've done. But no, I don't like do research before to be like, I saw this thing, you know? It's more after the fact. It's more that like, I wind up, for the most part, like loving the people I get to work with, and then like privately championing them. So like, afterward, it's like anything that they do, I'll be like, dude, I saw your thing. Like I went out and checked it out. It's great. You know,
and that's
like,
how you develop that relationship beyond just the work, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's so nice, like on the other side, to have a friend hit me up and be like, dude, I just went and checked out the movie, like really good. You know, like that kind of thing where you're like, oh man, it feels so nice to like have an opportunity to support other people in that way, to just be like, I took the time to go see the thing you did. Yeah. You know? But no, I tend to just like what I like in my own life. And I don't do a lot of like pre-work research in regard to seeing like someone else's catalog.
I gotcha. Yeah, you're just jumping into it.
Yeah. Because also like we're there for that specific thing, right? Like, you know, it's like as wonderful as someone could be in another project or terrible in another project. I also find that like I get on set and like big name, small name, known entity, first time thing, like whatever it is, that like I really just want to like connect with people that I like working with. You know, whether
that's an important
like
thing, right?
Martin Freeman, or is just like someone who's in for the day, and you're like, this is great, like this was lovely, we just had a nice time, like so that's really the thing that I'm like always kind of chasing, like on set. You know?
I gotcha. And you're going to interact with so many different people, because like even for your career, you've done a bunch of different things at this point. So developing relationships with a day player or something you're doing for a longer period of time, like relationship building can be a challenge, I'm sure.
I guess, yeah, but I'm doing it like not out of like the payoff of a long-term relationship, just out of the payoff of like, today was nice.
I'm here now, which I think is a cool thing. Yeah.
You like fight and scrap to like get to be a part of this world and get to be a part of these projects, to then like get into the ring, right? To get to be there and be like, and now I'm gonna focus on tomorrow. It's like, no, man.
Be
like,
present right now.
Yeah, dude, you like scrape to get here, so let's just like kick it here and have a great, if we can, like collaborative, like building day, and then like if we're lucky enough to come back tomorrow, we're gonna do it again tomorrow. But like, I don't have a, for better or worse, I don't have like an interest or a cultivating bone in my body to be like, this will serve me in the future, you know, as much as being like, that guy's kind of a dick. You know, like, I did not enjoy myself with this guy.
Today kind of sucked a little bit. But
or being like, I met this super cool guy, like, like I did this thing, I got to work with somebody who was like, sort of I was a big fan of, and another friend of mine had gotten to work with him, and I was like sort of talking to him about it, where I was like, man, even if this guy wasn't, you know, like this entity, this brand of this, right? even if that was just like a dude you met that day, you'd still walk away and be like, that's the coolest guy. Damn, like, guy's awesome. You know, like that thing is really the real joy of like working on something like this or anything where like you get to feel like you had a good day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
who's the guy? I mean, you got
Sam Rockwell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
like,
a great guy. I mean,
the coolest.
Yeah.
But also, like, if he wasn't like Sam Rockwell,
he's just a
like
chill dude.
A dude named Sam, you'd be like, I met the coolest guy today.
And what project?
The coolest dude.
What was that again?
I was in the last half of this FX limited series called Fosse Verdon, where he plays Bob Fosse and Michelle plays Gwen Verdon, and you know, just a fan of his for a long time, and then to like work with him, be friends with him, be like, oh, this dude's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, it's more about that I have a friend named Sam now, as opposed to being like, I should hit up Sam in regard to the thing in the future. It's like, no, get out of here. You know,
I
like,
feel you.
yeah, but I felt like that. Like, then I went to London after this for a while, for a little thing, and like, hit up Martin, and Martin and I like went and got paninis.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I would rather have that than anything else. You know,
I think that's the best version of it, because you're going to interact with all these people, and then it's like, can I get to a point where I can be in a city and hit this person up, and we can just go hang, have some food, get some beers.
Or
you know?
be like, what's a good spot? Even if they're like, dude, I can't make it out. Right. Be like, can you just tell me like where to go? Or he like turned me onto a play that was going on in the West End, and I was like, oh, check it out. And then it was this incredible. I was just like, amazing. You know, like those like true like friendships that like exist because of this business, but exist outside this business is like the real treat.
Definitely.
You know, like, that's the icing on the cupcake.
Totally. So you mentioned what it takes to scrap and claw to get into this industry. Why don't we wind it back a little bit and just give me a glimpse of what it was like to just try and jump into this thing, you know, growing up in Vermont and doing your thing.
Yeah, I grew up in Vermont. I thought like early on I wanted to be an actor, and then in high school tried to drop out of high school. My parents were very patient and not supportive of me dropping out of high school, but were very instrumental in like finding this other path for me to stay like engaged, you know, and to not really like drop off the face of the earth.
Probably a smart move.
Yeah, good parenting there. Very good.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. Yep.
They were like, so I wound up going to this like high school program that was set up by a guy who had grown up where I grew up, and then was an actor and went to acting school and lived in New York, and then came back, and that then like set me up to go to acting school, and then moved to New York after that, and kind of like just bounced around here. I mean, I would say bounced around here, but like I was really lucky very early. I got onto like this multicam like a couple of years out of school, and then we were lucky enough to like run for a full season, and then that basically like highs and lows, but like that like was the last time that I had a like a non-acting job to like pay my rent, you know? And so that money, you know, lasted like a year and a half of then like not working again. You know, where I was like, yeah, and
it's a lot of that in this industry.
It's only that.
Yeah, it's only that. It's like you're the ultimate freelancer.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine who I met doing that, and he's, you know, like a generation above me, and he was like, "You're in the sweet spot, man. Like you're in the sweet spot right now. Don't forget that." I was like, "Ooh, like."
This is when you were doing the multicam?
No, this is like 6 weeks ago.
Oh wow!
Like
okay,
he was like, he's like, I see you in a lot of stuff, and like, you're in the sweet spot. You're in the spot where like you're in the mix. And I just have to like remember that even now when it feels like this,
just remember where you're at.
That you're like, those like, the ups and downs are a little bit closer together, a little bit closer together. You know, that it's not like skyrocket total dive, skyrocket total dive, you know? So that's been like a learning process over 10 years of how to, I guess how to weather the storm and also how to be like, maybe it's not a storm.
Right.
maybe this is just what the sea is. You know,
it's just going to be choppy.
This is your normal life, right? Like, somebody said that to me on this job recently, was like, you keep waiting to be like, when is my life just going to be like normal? And that she was like, this is your normal life. Like, this is the normal life for you, is that like thing. And so as much as that, like, there isn't a whole lot of like, it feels like scraping to like get these jobs, to like put a career together. But you can't really control any of it. So there isn't a lot of like scraping or hustling as much as like being prepared and trying to be decent to people and hopefully good at what you do, and then hopefully get lucky enough that something like clicks here and clicks there, and you know, like get some repeat business. But like, that's a hard thing to like live with. That's a hard thing to accept. To be like, okay, so we're just like doing our best.
And this is my reality. This is my normal here.
This is the normal, and that like my normal's great.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other part, is to be like, oh, I do work a lot, and like, I can afford my life. Like, man, that's just, as an actor, as a baseline, is like, you did it.
Totally.
You're done.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're an employable actor, and you're not in debt. Like, woo!
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, man.
So when did it start to not feel normal? Meaning, like, when stuff started to hit, because like you had The Office. Like, when did that hit for you? How old were you at that point?
Man, I was like 26 probably.
Okay, so you've been doing it for a couple of years out of school.
Yeah, I shot a pilot a year after this first job was canceled, and they picked up the show and I got replaced on it. They replaced me with TJ Miller, and I had really wanted this job, and I had a great time, and the people who made it were like so gracious. You know, it wasn't like their choosing. There was some other like stuff going on there.
But that's a hard thing to deal with. It's like, you think you got it, it comes back, and then boom, it's like, all right, TJ, you're in, Jake,
Dude,
you're out.
I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That
Like,
sucks.
my doomsday like mentality was like, that's a wrap on Jake Lacy. Like, that's the last you're gonna hear of me. And I had friends who I'd made who were older actors who called and were just like, this is the gig, man. You know, like,
get used to it.
They were like, you wouldn't, the number of times I've been fired from a job, you wouldn't believe. You know, like, you know, it was so kind. Again, like those friendships, like people reaching out to be like, this sucks, man, and you're gonna be all right. And that was in the spring, I think, and then later, or in the summer maybe, and then like a few months later, my manager called and was like, they're gonna add 2 guys to the office, and you're the right age. I was like,
holy crap.
Like,
yeah.
You know, it was just like, I'll do anything. Like, I'll like, whatever it is, like, I'll do it. And yeah, so then, you know, it's just like, that's the other way that's like the perfect example for me to be like, I thought it was over.
And then here comes
And then
The
I got
Office.
to be on my favorite show. You know, it's like, okay, man, like, maybe you don't know what's coming down the line. Maybe you don't know how these things add up. Maybe you don't know, right, like what you're supposed to get, when you're supposed to get it, kind of stuff. And not that like every bad moment results in me being on my favorite show, but just to be like, you don't know, man. Yeah. And so then I like tested and flew out to LA, tested for the show, flew back. I was probably on like Tuesday or Wednesday. And then on like Friday night, I got a call that was like, you're the guy. Like, it's you. You get to be in the office. And we start shooting Monday. So like, you want to pack your bags? I was like,
you're like, is this for real?
Yeah, and my girlfriend was, you know, like a cocktail, serving cocktails at this bar in the East Village, and I like went into the East Village at like 1 a.m. and was like, so, I know you're like partway through your shift, but I gotta pack my bags because I leave in 36 hours, and like, and then lived in LA for like 8 or 9 months while we shot that. It's just like,
that's surreal.
So that's how that kind of came together. Yeah, within like 36 hours was like on set shooting with like John and Ryan and Jenna and Ed and the whole thing, being like, this is bonkers. This is nuts.
So The Office is a top 5 show for me, for sure.
Right
when you think about it, even whether it's your experience on the show or beforehand, why was it your favorite show?
Well, I was a huge fan of the British Office.
Okay,
like,
so you were in on that. Yeah.
I was deep into the UK Office, or just the Office, as Martin would refer to it.
Of course, yeah. Now it's got a different label.
Yeah, I was. Someone was like, "You were both on that," and Martin was like, "Oh, you were?"
I don't remember my version
just
with
to be
DJ.
like, "Oh, didn't realize." I was like,
Thanks, man.
but he was so. I tried to keep it like under wraps, and I was like monster, or like UK Office fan, and then it like slowly
started to trickle out.
Like I couldn't help it, and he was like so fun and gracious to like talk about it and joke with me about it.
Yeah.
And, like it was the coolest. But I mean, as to why, I don't know. I think like I was a little nervous when I heard they were going to do a US office as a fan of the UK, and then saw like, I mean, Greg Daniels and Carell are brilliant. So like their ability to take this show and this style and like mutate it into a fair representation or like fair to like the original joy and vibe and like idiosyncrasies of this first show, but also make it more accessible for like an American audience, as to what like American audiences appreciate or enjoy in that character type is remarkable. Like I can't imagine a better pivot from like one audience to the next, And so I was a fan of that style of like, at the same time that I discovered in college the UK Office, was also like watching Curb Your Enthusiasm and like the Larry Sanders Show and those first seasons of Arrested Development, and that like my friends and I would like get high at night and just like watch those shows on repeat, you know what I mean? Be like, what do you want to watch? And just like slam those DVDs like for hours. You know?
And they're just great watches. I mean, especially in that state too.
Like just remarkable.
Yeah.
Like, and I still like go back and I'm like, I watch the Larry Sanders Show all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I went back when I was in London. I like watched all of the British Office again and was like, this is phenomenal, So was just a huge fan. It was my favorite show, and then got to be on it.
Yeah.
Like when does that happen? Like
that's crazy.
Beyond. I don't even know. Full stop. You know what I mean? Like, just don't know.
Well, also your character, Pete, like it's one thing to be on the show, but then you have like a whole storyline in the last season, like that was pretty wild too.
Yeah, and I in a way like feel like I was like too much a fan almost. Like couldn't separate out enough to like create space there to be like, I'm gonna do my thing, right? Because it's both like an iconic show, but if you're gonna be a part of it, you have to like add something to the recipe.
Sure.
You can't just be like, I don't want to screw up the recipe.
Right.
No,
you're like, you're in. You got to do something.
Bread? Like, we want some salt and some pepper,
right.
And, like, and I fear a little bit that like I was too like in awe of the thing to be like, let's get in there and like mess this up, like.
You felt like that the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I was 26, and it was like the joy, the blessing of it is also like the grounds for like a full freak out to be.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I'm 26. I'm gonna be on my favorite show.
Look who I'm around.
A show that people love, surrounded by like real heavy hitters, people who've been here a long time. I really don't want to screw up, and that is, in my experience now, not a great recipe for like creativity and ease. To be like, don't ruin this is not like the basis for creativity and like your sense of self to like come through.
So when did that shift for you?
It's a constant battle. It's a constant like.
So even now, when you're popping into all different types of things, you still don't want to mess with the recipe.
The last 6 months has been better.
Okay.
I mean, I'm 33.
Right. Yeah, you've been doing it for over a decade.
For about a decade.
Yep.
And I'm like just now starting to, like then at one point it got too far where I was just like, let's be lazy, like not lazy, but just like easy and sloppy and weird.
Let's
and
try
messy
everything.
And then seeing those scenes put together and being like, there's a lack of like purpose in that work. It just looks like a guy who's enjoying himself, which isn't enjoyable for us to watch. Like, I don't need to just watch a guy being like, I was pretty clever in that scene, right? You're like,
You're like,
okay,
who's this dude? Yeah.
Cool, man. Like, glad you had a nice time. And so now trying to like, you know, marry those two and being like, how do we really, which in essence is like, it's always like relearning what teachers at school wanted you to know. You know, where
and there's
like,
a reason why they were trying to harp on that.
And they're hammering on this thing, and you're like, I think I get that. And then for me, I have to go like all the way out here, and then all the way out here, and then be like, oh,
now I get
it. Like,
it's usually that circuitous route you have to take to get there.
Yeah. It's like, so I feel like just now, probably, I'm starting to like understand that more, and also like am able to like bring my real self to things in a better way maybe than I have in the past, and which also in terms of like my work is then like much more freeing in the result category.
Sure.
Because if people don't like it, you're like, that's okay. That's okay. Like, I did the thing I wanted to do.
Right, that's me.
Okay,
I laid it out there.
Right, so if you don't respond to it, that's totally fine. Whereas, like, the other version of being like, please don't screw up, please don't screw up, and then people go like, you're not that good.
Right.
You're like, I screwed up.
And you were holding this all in, too, what it could have been.
Right, and then my response is like, that's fine, that's cool that you didn't like that. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not searching for validation. Like, it's just a nightmare, you know? And it's hard to like untangle yourself from that. But now feel a little like, oh, just starting to figure out like, I don't like this. I do like that. I want to have more of this. This is the thing I care about, you know? Yeah, so sort of a long, I also imagine 10 years from now being like, oh,
you're going to be in a totally different spot.
You thought this other thing was happening,
right.
but you're actually, it's this, right? Like, because you're trying to find that, like.
It's a constant evolution.
That. Yeah, and that's kind of the major joy of this job is like you never, if you choose, like it never, you don't stop.
Right, it doesn't have to be a shelf life. It's not like you're an athlete with just a finite amount of time. Like, as you get older, you're getting better and better and better.
Yeah. At school, they were like, it takes 20 years to make an actor.
And you're like, yeah, okay.
I was like, 20 years?
But now you see it, you're like, I can understand this.
Yes, just now to start to glimpse things that I'm like, oh, that's something I want to keep. Like, that's something I want to hold. And also knowing to, like, start to see the thing, to start to be like, oh, this is what it is. And that little realization 10 years in also comes along with being like, and that's nothing. Like, that's this much.
Right.
There's
I'm
so
just scraping
much
the
more
surface
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned people have given you good advice, people have helped you along the way. Who have some of those people been? You know, you mentioned like you have this older group of people you rely on. Who are some of those folks?
It's really like job to job now that I like, you know, if the moment is like right and I have like a specific thought or question with what that person does or has done, I'll like lay it out there, you know? Whereas before maybe I'd be too, I don't know, worried about their reception. Yeah. So like that first job I had, this lovely actor, Kurt Fuller, he played my girlfriend on the show's father. Okay. And he was probably early 50s at the time, and I was my early 20s. And he and I, like, he was like my best friend on that show.
That's cool.
And gave me just like wonderful advice through the process, and then also afterward. I mean, he's one of the guys who called when I got like replaced, and he was like, oh wow. He was like, you're not a real actor unless you've been like fired and
so
replaced.
That's the voice,
you know, like, but I was like, man, that like meant so much to me.
I needed that.
You know, to have a guy be like, this is the gig.
Right.
Like, relax, man. This is the whole thing, you know? And he and I feel like had a similar perspective on like the highs and lows of this career and of like good or bad work or good or bad people, or, you know, but he had 30 more years in this business to be like, you need to relax, you know, like chill out, dude.
Yeah.
Like relax, you know? You know, or like the Fosse Verdon thing, like talking to Sam about the Iron Man movies and being like, when you do a movie of that size, do you feel like the material and the like world building of it all takes care of and informs more about your work, or do you feel like you have to be more specific? And he was like, oh man, you have to be so specific because the world is so big, it'll get lost if you're not like really like doing your work as an actor. If you just kind of like let the stuff take care of itself, you get lost in there and it's not, there's nothing there to hold on to. Like you have to be specific. It's like that kind of stuff. Or like speaking to Martin, and he was like, man, what about Jack Lemmon? Like, what about, like, we reward this very like acting, you know, this like letting
intensity,
everyone know how aggressive you're, you know? And he was like, man, what about like Jack Lemmon, right? Like Tony Curtis, like, what about these guys who could like really tell a story with this level of like ease and grace where they didn't show you the work or didn't show you that the work was happening,
right?
And yet you're along for, I mean, like, I'm not the first to say this, but like The Apartment is just like a perfect picture, you know?
And that's why it still is talked about today.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's just like such a beautiful piece. And sort of take that little thing and not be like, that's who I'll be now. I'll be Jack Lemmon. But to like, to just absorb that and be like, oh right, there is a real joy in like work that doesn't look like work. I just watched 4 Weddings and a Funeral, the film.
Yeah. Oh, the film. Okay. Yeah.
Had never seen it. Hugh Grant. It's like there's no one else there. You're just like it's a vacuum, in that, like, in a beautiful way, not like he ruins us. It's like his level of like ease and grace and charm
is
and
impressive.
Specificity of relationships, and you're just like, wow, man. And like, that's, audiences, I think, myself included, are like warm to that, like want that thing, but don't reward it in the same way that we like really stand up and applaud for like the guy with the gun.
Right.
You know, like,
it's interesting what we applaud.
Yeah. What we get real hot for and what we go like, oh sure, but that's pretty easy.
Right.
And you're like, no, man, what Hugh Grant does is really lovely.
Yeah.
It's like,
and there's a place for it.
Yeah, and there's a yes, very much so. Paddington 2. Have you seen those Paddington movies?
No.
Dude, Paddington movies are
unique.
Awesome. And he's in the second one, and he plays a stage actor who's like just beyond his years, right? Like, isn't really getting the calls anymore for these roles. But he has kept like the wardrobe and wigs and makeup and all this stuff for these characters and uses them to pull off these heists. But he's also a little like, and so he's upstairs like speaking to different characters as different characters in the thing, like in his own home alone. You're like, this is bonkers.
This is pretty meta here.
Yes, but it's like, he is wonderful. I mean, the whole film is lovely, but like, I guess being able to take those little things and like treating them like seeds, to just be like, why don't you just plant this over here and like give it a little water and sunlight,
let it grow.
Take this thing and we'll
marinate.
plant that there, and like, let's just see like where these go, you know? Yeah, I was doing a thing like, I just another like, I was talking about how like, well, man, it'd be just the guys who have the superhero gigs, like, great, amazing. And Emma Thompson was like, is that what you would want? And I was like, yeah. She was like, really? I was like, well, I think so. I mean, like, I don't know, actually. Like, and not to say I don't want that, because there's a lot of like doors that open for you with that, and like, man, it's really cool to be a part of that universe,
right.
you know? But I had really taken it on as like, that's the goal. That's the end-all, be-all goal. As opposed to being like, that would be cool. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I've got some other stuff I'm gonna do too. You know, like, whether it's like, the stuff I take from these other actors is less like a trick and more like a thoughtful way to like perceive this business or your way through it, more than being like, oh, that guy always looks left and then right. I'll do that. Like it's not like camera tricks as much as
just tricks of the
emotional
trade.
tricks.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, how to do like how to maneuver through this business and stay like a person. You know, stay like intact.
Yeah, because you've seen people over the years who have just completely lost themselves. I mean, you mentioned the Larry Sanders Show. I mean, Gary Shandling was shot by the end of his career. He had just been working too hard and done so much. You watch the HBO documentary on him, it's just like, he was burnt out. Yeah, he was done, you know? And you don't ever want to get to that point.
Or maybe know when I get to that point, if I'm so lucky.
When you hit your limit.
Like, okay, like, I'll see you.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm out.
I'm gonna go now.
Yeah.
You know, or be like, I'm just gonna take. I mean, it's such an insane luxury to talk about. To be like, I'm gonna take some time as an actor, because every actor is like, all I've got is time, man. You're talking about take time.
You're like, I'm waiting for the next gig, and you want to take a few months off.
You should take a breather and chill. It's too stressful, man. But I see how people after 45 years of like nonstop work, or really like, in a lot of those cases, like nonstop celebrity, are like, I'm gonna go now. Right. Because I'm done with this thing. I'm done with the machine.
Right. Well, that was like when Daniel Day-Lewis was like, I'm out. You're like, wait, what? Like,
yeah.
Hold up. You're done this great acting, but each person knows their own limit.
Also, like, oh man, there's a quote from him about that. You know, I'm paraphrasing it a bit, but like about Phantom Thread. And he was like, I just know at the beginning of filming that, Paul and I laughed a lot, and by the end we weren't laughing anymore. And I was like, ooh, like, man, that's a beautiful way to talk about what that experience must have been. And also just like that alone, to be like, it started as a joy and it did not end as such. And like, I think I might have given everything I've got. You're like, wow, man.
That's real.
And you've given a lot. You know, like, we've taken a lot from you.
We have, yeah. Thank you for walking around like Lincoln for all that time to deliver that performance, or Gangs of New York, or anything else he's done.
Just, and also like to like, yes, it's like a privilege. You know, I don't know, there's maybe 2 other people in the world who can like call their shots in that way, right? But like, to really treat his own work with the level of like integrity that he chooses is like very cool. I don't know the guy, but like just from a distance to be like, wow, you don't feel the need to like give in to the thing, to be like, I'm gonna get on Twitter. I should be on Twitter because everyone needs to know what I have to say. You know, like, I'm gonna be on Instagram so everyone can see that I was here today. That's the thing that matters. That is the story I want to tell, is Jake on Instagram. You know, like, I just really admire those actors who are like, no, it's not for me. It's also hard because the financial system that backs all this is like, hey man, you got to promote the movie because that's how we make money.
You want to make some money?
Do you want to get paid to do it?
Do you want to have another gig?
We have to have that money, and so you need to go talk about this thing. You know, like.
But some people are able to pick and choose, be like, nah, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're.
Not a bad deal.
That good.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you've been doing it for that long.
Yeah. That like is the currency, is like that performance, you know? You don't have to go out and like, sort of, I'm sure they do battle with it in other ways, but like, they call their shots in that way, and that's like, I don't know. I don't understand it, and I'm in awe of it. You know?
You're like, this would be nice,
how does that work?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, this is not my life.
You guys are really good. Oh, interesting.
So you're very thoughtful about your life, the industry, when you think about...
At times, yes.
At times, maybe not all the time. When you think about going beyond this movie and other stuff you'd like to do, what sort of piques your interest down the road?
Man. You know, I often... I'd like to like... do more work as a guy who looks like someone that you should trust and that maybe you shouldn't trust. Like more stuff where I can look like a Boy Scout and there's just more there than a guy who's like happy to go along for the ride, you know?
There's some twists along the way.
Yeah, like Dexter is sort of a lovely example of a guy where you're like, all right, he looks like he's on the straight and narrow, and he works for this police department, and he, but actually has this like thing in him that he's not in control of, you know, like that kind of stuff, or The Talented Mr. Ripley, or you know, stories where you're like, the discomfort in how, myself included, but like how easily we accept what we're told, you know, being like, this is a good person and I'm sure they're normal and we hit it off, and being like, that guy killed his whole family. You're like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's like the Charles Manson thing. There's a lot of Manson stuff going on. It was like this person that was really charismatic, but also deeply
He had a sketchy look.
Yeah, he definitely had a sketchy look. Right, he didn't have that golden boy look.
There's a great, like, this woman, Karina Longworth, did a lovely podcast series a couple of years back. That's like a 10 or 12 part series. Each is like an hour plus about Manson. And not just like the murders, but like Manson from childhood through that. And like, man, a guy, like, it doesn't make me feel, I don't go, wow, Charles Manson's the real victim here.
No.
But you're like, if you wanted to build the profile of a person who would eventually like take real advantage of others and with a real sadistic twist to it, here's the life that you would probably build from the ages of like 0 to 14 for that person to then go be like a psychosexual killer. Is like, this
all makes
the
sense.
build.
Right.
Have you seen Once Upon a Time?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
We were talking about it. Half this room has seen it, half this room has not.
But Damon Harriman was here, who played Manson for that short time.
He's lovely in it. He doesn't have like a...
No, he just pops in for a quick sec, but he also plays Manson coming up in Mindhunter, too. So I was like, dude, are you just going to be the Manson guy? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to break out of that adventure.
What do you see coming down the line? Probably more Charles Manson stuff, to be honest with you.
But what did you think when you saw the movie?
I got this thing in my phone now, and that's permanent. So, oh man, it's the best time I've had in the theater in a long time.
Wow, that's saying something.
It also feels like, I mean, I'm an actor. I'm interested in that era. I'm interested in the touchstone events that Tarantino's like using in that narrative, and love the kind of inside baseball of like movie making and TV making, and love Brad Pitt and DiCaprio, and like, so it feels, I was like texting with another couple friends of mine, I was like, dude, it feels like they made a movie like for me. It feels like all the things I love and want, and I'm like,
it's right here,
intrigued by Tarantino's filmmaking and the music and the look and the thing. It's like, I don't know that everybody will feel that way, but for me, I was like, yes,
finally,
yes, like all of it.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, so that was such a like, I don't know, just when you're like, all the things I like
already
got like put into one stew, and then I got served this stew. Like, yeah, man, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Tarantino at the top of your list of people to work with? Like, who are some of the directors you'd love to go about it with?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a pretty good track record of movies.
Yeah, he's doing okay. He's got some cool stuff. I guess it's honestly probably the same list as everybody else. You know what I mean? Like there's
Scorsese,
no like
Spielberg,
yeah,
Tarantino.
there's no like secret ones that people are like, nobody says this.
Right, here's my dark horse over here.
Yeah, a friend of my college roommate actually. I love it if he was putting a film together. So really, it ends up being like just the opportunities that come, and like this is a good example of like loving Jason's work and loving Martin's work, and being like, yeah, of course I want to like go play with those guys and create something for a month in Brooklyn. That ends up being the decision-making process for me, or if the decision's not in my hands, obviously, just auditioning and, to be like, man, that would be awesome to get to do that, right? That Fosse Verde thing is another like, oh, I love Sam, I love Michelle.
Perfect example, yeah.
The creative team behind Hamilton is doing this.
Oh, man.
The DP is a guy from Girls, Tim Ives, like, Steve did Stranger Things. You're like, oh, it's gonna look cool, it's got a wonderful cast, it's got a wonderful creative team behind it, like, why wouldn't you want to be in on that? Like, just because you feel like those people have a thing to offer and you have something to offer back, more than like, I guess that's there isn't a more than. It's just like that is like the thing,
I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for hanging.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Thanks for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
This is a great movie too. Ode to Joy, August 9th. Theaters, VOD, demand, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time. That's Jake. I'm DJ. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.
Thanks, man.